defense. They really had some key stops.
Welcome back and good evening, America.
Speaking of Joe Biden and his future as president,
Pioneers had a very clean game.
The next meeting will be Monday, February 8th.
Leaving millions without electricity and record-breaking cold.
Hello, Pioneers, and welcome back to your national news show. I'm Sawyer Brisson.
and I'm Ty Martin. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get right into it.
Let's kick things off with like we do most weeks with some pop culture news. For starters, let's dive into Taylor Swift's new album. It's Swift's fourth album and now has been recorded. One of the songs on the album is called All Too Well. Originally, a 5-minute song has been released in a 10-minute version. The album sparks a lot of controversy after subtly calling out ex-boyfriend Jake Gyllenhaal.
Adele performed outside the Griffin Observatory last month for this weekend's Adele One Night Only special. She helped a lucky fan get engaged in front of the stage. Then they got in to sit with the front row between Lizzo and Melissa McCarthy. Proposals at Adele concerts became common during her 2016-2017 world tour. The scene had fans at home cheering for the happy couple and praising Adele for pulling off the surprise.
Seahawks quarterback since 2011, Russell Wilson struggled with his throwing accuracy in his first game since October. He just recently had surgery to correct an injury to his right middle finger, and the Seahawks couldn't capitalize on a strong showing by their defense in a 17-0 loss to the Packers in snowy Green Bay on Sunday.
Now back into some real national news. According to New York Times, in September alone, 4.4 million American workers quit their jobs. This is a record number for a single month in the past 2 decades. With nearly 1 million in leisure and hospitality industry alone, many businesses are still recovering from last year's pandemic-induced shutdowns.
As attorneys in Kyle Rittenhouse homicide trial prepare for closing arguments Monday, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers had 500 National Guard troops on standby outside of Kenosha, ahead of a possible verdict. Some see Rittenhouse 18 as an armed vigilant who should go to prison, and others say he acted in self-defense while he was there to help provide first aid and protect people's property.
Rittenhouse shot and killed Joseph Ronnebaum and Anthony Hoover using an AR-15 type rifle during the protests and demonstrations in Kenosha, Wisconsin on August 25, 2020. Rittenhouse also wounded Gage G. Rittenhouse now faces 5 felony charges, and as of now, his weapon charges have been dropped. If Rittenhouse is convicted of the most serious charges against him, he faces a mandatory sentence of life in prison. He has pleaded not guilty to the 6 charges.
Now for your extremely saw of Ohio COVID update. COVID-19 cases are now on the rise, and in the past few days, we have seen a spike in cases following the trend of last week's cases hit about 4,700 cases on Sunday, which is a sharp incline from last week's newscast, and an even sharper increase from just 3 weeks ago when cases were about 1,500 less than they currently stand. Experts are suggesting another increase as Thanksgiving approaches and out-of-town travel is at its yearly high. However, 52% of Ohio is already fully vaccinated, not to mention that new age range of people who are eligible for their first vaccine, which is 5 and older.
Former President Donald Trump's political ally Steve Bannon on Monday surrendered to the FBI on charges of criminal contempt of Congress stemming from his refusal to cooperate with the House Select Committee investigating January 6th attack on the Capitol. Bannon on Friday was charged with 2 counts of contempt for failure to comply with the committee subpoena to produce any records and testify what he knew about the assault.
A superior court in Connecticut granted a sweeping victory to the families of 8 people killed in the 2012 mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, suing the far-right broadcaster and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones and his InfoWars media outlet for defamation. The judge in Connecticut ruled on Monday that because Mr. Jones refused to turn over documents ordered by the courts, including financial records, he was liable by default. The ruling combines with 3 previous rulings in Texas to grant the families of 10 Sandy Hook shooting victims 4 victories and 4 defamation lawsuits against Mr. Jones.
For years, Jones spread bogus theories that the shooting that killed 20 first graders and 6 educators was a government-led plot to confiscate Americans' firearms, and the victims' families were actors in the scheme. The Sandy Hook families maintain that Mr. Jones profited from the spreading lies about their relatives' murders. Mr. Jones has disputed that, while for years failing to produce significant records to the courts.
The Trump Organization has reportedly agreed on a $375 million deal to sell their hotel near the White House in Washington, D.C. The New York Times said the buyer was exploring a renaming of the hotel, replacing the Trump brand with Waldorf Astoria under a deal with Hilton Hotels. Any deal must be approved by the federal government. The hotel opened for business in 2016, shortly before Trump defeated Hillary Clinton for the presidency and swiftly became a magnet for controversy.
On Sunday, CNN published the largest behind-the-scenes expose on Harris's time as vice president thus far, featuring interviews from nearly 36 former and current Harris aides, administration officials, and Democratic operatives, donors, and outside adversaries. According to CNN, there is a growing bitterness between the representative teams of Biden and Harris, and the situation has become back and forth of the irrigations. Over the great many things, CNN's sources argued that Harris's team believes Biden hasn't provided enough support while her tasks have been put to no-win political situations that will only sandbag her in the future, while Biden's team believes many of Harris's issues are her own making.
Well, that's all we have for you today, Pioneers. Thank you for tuning into your weekly national news show. I'm Sawyer Brisson.
And I'm Ty Martin. That's all we have for today, and we'll see you next week.